G'day YouTube, Turbo Tristan here, and in today's video we're going to attempt to put in the hydro clutch conversion kit that I made. Hopefully drop the motor in, and we're also going to finish up the fuel lines in the back. Welcome back to the channel everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you're enjoying the content on this EF build. I'm learning tons and tons. Down here on the ground is my hydro clutch setup that I made. Now I just made this bracket to fit everything in. We've got the braided hell line, which is going to go to the slave cylinder. Managed to put the spring back on. We've got the genuine normal split pin from the 88 Civic. So this is all the original pedal assembly that came out of the car, and it's all going to go straight back in. Now I just basically copied this design from a few other guys on YouTube, just sort of made it my own, but basically the same thing. Turned the pull pedal into a push pedal on the clutch, so it's pushing in the piston into the hydraulic master cylinder, pushing the oil through the line down to the slave cylinder over on the gearbox, and then pushing the pedal in to change the gears. So essentially that's what we've done. Utilize the spring so it springs back to its original place. I'm going to get all this back in the car. Now I didn't measure this, so hopefully we have enough clearance. I can finish off the fuel lines under the car, and then we should be able to chuck this bad boy in. Now, even though I say we're going to chuck the engine in, that doesn't mean we're anywhere even near close to getting the car fired up and running. I've got to go and find some new nuts for the drive shafts because I had to butcher the old ones to get them off, and you shouldn't really use those more than once or twice, and I'm sure they've been used 100 times on and off in the last 30 something years. So we're going to get some new nuts for there, install the drive shafts, get all that in. The ECU's done, the wiring is ran, so I can plug all the connectors back in. The issue that I'm facing is how do I get the speedo to work and how do I get the tacho to work? Now I'm sure someone out there will say, yeah, just run the wires directly to the dizzy and you get the tacho to work or something like that. My expertise as far as wiring and electronics go is zero. So unless there's a really simple plug and play option or someone knows how to do it in Melbourne, they want to come by the shop and help me out, that would be amazing. Otherwise I might have to call in the experts for that, but I'm going to do my best to get all the mechanical side in the car and run and done. I'll be back soon. Won't bore you with the swearing and screaming and all the uncomfortable positions under the dash, but I'll come back and show you once it's all installed what it looks like and how it works. As you can see by the look on my face, the hydro clutch pedal install didn't go as well as I'd hoped. We're gonna do a backflip now and go upside down under the dash, and I'll show you what I mean. So just underneath here, there's some scratch marks here which I've made. Just up there where the steering column and everything bolts. Yeah, I didn't allow for that clearance. I'll show you over at the pedal what I've done. So over here, I actually just copied the design, made it nice and strong, and sent it, and I didn't actually check the height here. I figured that there was a big flat area here, I remembered that, and that's where the steering column bolted to and the pedals bolted to, and there's this hole here. But then if you look there, I didn't line that up, so that is a dumb ass rookie mistake. I'm going to remake this whole bracket. I could cut it and re-drill it and drop it, but I want to do things right and properly on this car, so when it gets to the weekend and I can make some noise, I'll remake that bracket. Now that I pretty much have all the measurements, I'll drop it down. I only really need about 10 mil, but I'll probably drop it down about 15 mil and then redo the bracket. Shouldn't take me too long now that I've done it once. But what that means is I can go ahead and stick the engine in the car because I don't need any measurements or anything or any places to drill out under here, because I'm going to run the hydro cable through this hole that was already here, and the reservoir can go through that hole that was there. So I'll go have some dinner with the missus, and then I'll come out and slam the engine in. Shouldn't take too long at all. It's been a few days since I've picked up the camera. I've actually had to remake my hydraulic pedal bracket. This was prototype V1. I've now got prototype V2, which is much smaller. It gives clearance of the top of the pedal box here, so it's not going to interfere with anything. All those ridges there. I've lowered the pedal down, and I've also made it lighter, strengthened it up by putting the brace at the back, which I previously had to cut off, but this time it's all perfect. That's all nice and straight. That's all nice and strong. It's not going to go anywhere. It's got a gusset here and here, which makes it really, really strong. So that's ready to go back in. We've just had a special delivery in the mail. Right behind me here is a new traction bar to replace this, wherever it's gone, this big fat wad of thing over here. That boy there. So we're going to replace that with this beautiful traction bar from Max Peating Rods with all the rose joints and everything. The last video on the car stirred up quite a bit of controversy with me chopping a hole in the fuel tank over there. Let me just read some of the comments. And firstly, I just want to say thanks so much for everyone that comments on the videos, whether they're positive, negative, giving me constructive criticism, flat out criticism, or praise. The praise is nice, the helpfulness is even better, and the constructive criticism, I take all of it on board. Flat out haters, doesn't bother me, keep it up, bring it on, let's go guys. I can do this all day. First one is from Frankie R. Damn, what a way to F up a fuel tank. All you had to do was change the fuel pump and use the original hanger. You cannot change pedal assemblies, they won't fit or mix and match. This is turning into a shit show with bad info, horrible mistakes. Put the nutsert gun down. You did finish with the original speed sensor from the transmission will work. 100% brother, you were right. I've put the original speed sensor down in there and you were right, it did work. The thing that you were wrong about was the fuel tank, and I'll show you why. So over here, this is the factory tank. This guy right here is a factory fuel level sensor. There is no room anywhere for a fuel pump to go. The EF and ED chassis in Australia in its base form came with a carburetted dual carb unleaded engine. So D15, twin carby, therefore no fuel pump in the fuel tank. They did actually have everything here cut out and embossed ready to go. I cut the top off, had a look inside. There's actually baffles inside the tank. They're situated in slots on the top and on the bottom so that the fuel has to go up and down like that to slosh from one side to the other. So that's all taken care of and sorted. And Honda, I don't know if other manufacturers do this, but Honda's actually been doing this for quite a while. In the old SB one down there, which is the little ripper with the B16A in it, that guy has the factory fuel tank. I've had to make a custom fuel hat similar to that using EK stuff. And when I cut the heck out of the fuel tank, because that one was actually pretty rusty, and I've got some resin epoxy to go inside there to seal it all up. Again, it's special epoxy for fuel tanks. So once I finally get around to welding that, we'll run that through there, slosh it around, seal everything up, make sure it's rust proof and leak proof before we get going. Anyway, enough about that. So my point is they definitely have baffles inside the fuel tank. So that's going to be fine. Where the fuel pump is at the bottom. So under acceleration, all the fuel has a tendency to go to the back of the car. It's right in the center of the fuel tank as well. So any sloshing side to side, it's still going to have fuel there. Plus there's the baffles already built in. This one's a bit of a funny one. There's someone who comments on all of my videos and all of Rex's videos. I've actually stolen the subscriber across. Their name is Aki_XD, which I think is like that dead smile face, or the squinty face is the XD. AKI_XD. They write meow or meow meow or meow on every single video of mine. And they do it on every single video of Rex's. So if you see that person in the comments, I don't know who they are, Rex doesn't know who they are, make sure you just do a random animal noise in the comments to that person under their comment. I think it'd be funny. Back to progress on the engine. Somebody said, I can't find their comment, they said you could have just used the rocker cover off the D15, which here it is here, which is the original Honda valve cover, 16 valve, Honda badge. Notice the shape of it. It's a lot wider and fatter, and the spark plugs are actually at the back. The oil cap is in a different spot. Just everything about it, although they do look similar at first glance, they are totally different, and I'll prove that with this one here. So first off, you can see it's much smaller, much narrower. The spark plugs are at the front of the engine, and the oil filler cap is at the other end of the rocker. So totally different. Maybe it does on some models, but not this particular model. If you had, this engine comes out in the EGs in Australia and also the Integras, and it's got fuel injection. It would have probably been easier to swap all of that stuff onto this motor or swap one of those motors in. Because we're not doing a B swap or a K swap, there's no real point just swapping in the same engine with fuel injection. So we've gone for a D16Y8, which is out of a late 90s EJ8 Civic here in Australia. It's 1.6, it's Vtec, much more modern. So that's why we've gone that way. Yes, it would have been easier to use the other motor, but this is a cheap swap, power upgrade, extra 30 kilowatts. Everything about it's nicer and newer. They actually drive really nice and smooth. Plenty of power and torque in this little guy. So yeah, no brainer. The next thing that I've done off camera is I've also hooked up the power steering. So I reached out to Raceworks, grabbed some fittings. This is a pressure sensor switch for the power steering. Now EGs and EKs don't have this sensor in there, but the EF does, so I decided to put it back in. Luckily Raceworks has a fitting that utilizes the sensor. We've got a 45-degree push lock there. Even though it says this is rated up to 250 PSI, I'm probably going to stick a clamp on there just out of pure paranoia. But what I did is I just cut the original line, put a steel fitting on there, crushed it up. It doesn't leak, I've tested it in water. And then some pressure hose. I've cut off a bit more than I need, but that goes up to here, and I've already put the fitting in just there, so you can see that ready to go. I just need to order a 90-degree. When the engine's in, cut that, measure it, make sure it's all sweet, give it plenty of space. I could even tuck that back here and just keep it all nice, but we'll jump that hurdle when we get to it. I'm excited that the speedo sensor will work. I'm going to probably make a little bracket just to hold that down in here so it pushes down like it did in the EK. Yeah, we're making heaps and heaps of progress. One thing I would like your guys' expertise on is the engine mounts. Now, firstly, I thought I got super lucky. I found a set of EG D-series engine mounts. Everything looked perfect, like it would line up, and they bolted onto the motor just fine. Front, back, side to side, they all work perfectly. However, when I went to put them into the car, I noticed that the offset was wrong and there wasn't enough clearance between the gearbox and the chassis rail. So this tells me we've got a problem. So I've emailed Hasport. I've asked them if they do any mounts or anything like that. If anybody knows what engine mounts we can use, if there's something OEM that I can either find at a junkyard or buy for much cheaper, let me know, because I really would love your help on that. But essentially we need to make sure the mounts on this one are a little bit higher and a little bit over toward the back of the car. Same goes with the front one. Otherwise we're going to have the engine sitting like this and like that. So we don't want that. So hopefully Hasport get back to me. Hopefully they've got something in stock that we can get early next year, being that it's a week away from Christmas. We're not holding our breath that we're going to get anything. But that's where we're up to. I'm going to stick the pedals into the car, put the interior back together, get all of that sorted, run the lines through into the engine bay, find the bolts for this, get the front half of this up and in the car. And then it's just a matter of waiting on engine mounts. I've got to wait for a couple more hoses. I'm just waiting for some wiring and a couple of fittings, and then I can finish off the rest of the fuel system. Not sure if I showed you that yet, but we've got the Raceworks line from the front to the back. Now, the lines from the carby actually run through the firewall under the carpet inside the car. We don't really want that to happen, so we've ditched all of that. They're staying there. I've just cut the ends off them and poked them in. This is the preferred way. Solid lines, yes, you can do it with soft lines, but we've got the solid lines, in and out, or pump and return. So that's all sweet to go. Got to do some wiring for the fuel pump, got to figure that out. But it's all coming along. I've had to think about the solution with the coilovers and how to get them lower. I've got a feeling there's a shorter fork that I can use. It'll drop the car maybe another inch or so in the front. The back's all right. We don't want it totally slammed, but maybe we can lose an inch by getting a different fork from like an Integra or an EG or something. I know there's one that's shorter and fatter that should work. Just a matter of finding a pair and figuring out which ones are going to fit. That's all coming along. I'm going to whip the car down, shove the pedals in, like I said, and get back to work. Quit blabbing. It's another night in the shed complete. We got a lot done tonight. The brake booster is in, mounted, secured. The accelerator cable is in. The hydro cable is in. That's going to go over to here, across the engine into the gearbox. I've got to run the reservoir yet. It'll go through that hole. I'll get a grommet for there. Pedals are all back in. This thing killed my back, but luckily I had this memory foam there. But we have a pedal and we have the steering wheels back in. Managed to line that up with the splines, hopefully perfectly. But that's all good there. Springs back. Once I get that all bled and pressurized and everything, pressure in the line, that should feel really nice, that pedal. And it'll just come down to how much force is needed to push the clutch. Hopefully I sort out the engine mount situation. Hopefully I sort out my shirt situation, because I ripped that whilst I was rolling around in my fatness under the steering column, under the dash. So problem solved in this episode was the accelerator cable's in, brake booster's in, hydro clutch is in, the lines ran for that, steering column's back in. We figured out the speedo cable so that the retro speedo works with the new gearbox. Still haven't worked out how I'm going to do the ignition, the fuel pump wiring, or the rev tacho, or just a tachometer. Don't know why people call it a rev tacho. But I'm absolutely buggered. It's around about 10 o'clock on a Thursday night. I've got to get the other car ready to take to the elusive dyno day, and dyno a whopping D16 wire 4 non-Vtec with every single bolt on known to man on it. So we're going to see what sort of power that makes. So until next time, don't forget to spool up. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Cheers.